question that may hit a little closer to home for people, surprisingly. This past Sunday, you were sharing, there's been we've welcomed another baby into the Grace Bible Church family. And in staff meeting, you were talking about just how many more have been scheduled out. You have kind of your running list of pregnancies and who's doing when. And
I think it's 16 that I know of that we will, Lord willing, have born in 2024.
Yeah, so far.
And there are already 12 that are due in the first quarter of 2025.
Right.
So
and that's on the heels of what was like 18 last year and around the same.
22 in 23.
Yeah.
Or 23 and 23, something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of babies.
It's a lot
in 2023.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I thought it'd be actually, my wife brought this up. She was just thinking through, there's a lot of young moms, which also means there's a lot of young fathers. Many of them, this is their first baby, or for many of them, they're looking at number 2 or number 3. Motherhood, especially in those early years, has its unique challenges. I think being a parent of any age has challenges. But those early years are unique, especially with the busyness and the sleeplessness and all that kind of stuff. So, speaking to the dads, speaking to the fathers, how would you encourage these fathers to love and care for their wives in this particular season with little kids, babies, and all that comes with it? How would you encourage fathers to serve their wives well?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to realize that in the partnership between you and your wife, you have the easier task to understand that.
Yeah, sure.
She has the harder task.
For sure.
You say, oh, well, I have to go out and earn a living. Yeah, well, she has to stay in and keep things alive. So which is easier, right? So there's that. I think, obviously, regardless of whether you have children or not, the prime objective of a husband is to represent Christ in the way that he loves his wife. And I think that that's pretty key. And some of the characteristics of that love that are particularly essential when women are going through so many different stressors and demands, not only externally through the development of new responsibilities and inconveniences and travails, really, of first pregnancy with all the sickness and the weakness and dizziness and other things that can characterize that, to the loss of energy that exists then, and then you get to the labor and delivery with all the difficulty that goes into that, and then the hormonal adjustments that are made both in pregnancy that causes a woman to be emotional, and then afterward the struggle with hormones to get back into balance, and your insides are relocating after the vacancy that child creates upon birth.
Your insides are relocating.
Yeah, they are.
I know.
They are. And so there are all kinds of things going on. There are physiological changes that are happening. And then you have the issue of the hormonal swings that are associated with nursing, and there's so much going on. And she is working hard to maintain her composure against the hormonal, chemical, physiological challenges that she's encountered and encountering.
Yeah.
So men have to realize, look, your wife is going through a ringer. Well, she gave birth 2 months ago. Well, understand that it's not instant. I remember an occasion where, before I was a father, my pregnant wife and I went to the nursery for our tour of the hospital, and we saw the nursery. We saw this and that, birthing rooms and so on. We saw all that. And we went to the nursery observation area to look at babies that had been born, and there's this woman standing there, and she looked 9 months pregnant. And I said to my wife, I wonder when she's due. She goes, that's a new mom. I said, what? That's a new mom. She looks pregnant.
Right.
She goes, you do know, right, that when you give birth, you don't just go back to a pre-pregnant.
Right.
And I'm going, oh, well, okay. I didn't know.
Sure.
I mean, I had to learn that, and I'm glad I didn't say anything like, "Excuse me, ma'am, when is your baby?"
Right. As she's holding the newborn.
Yeah. Now, I mean, my wife was remarkably fit. Again, soon. I mean, I think of all the women that I can imagine, she bounced back,
recovered
pretty quickly. Right, she did, and I was glad for that. But that, I mean, I'm just talking about form. It was funny because the Sunday after she gave birth, right? So we gave birth to all of our children on Tuesdays,
right? Because
our doctor was very cooperative, and I said I can't have anything interfere with Sunday. So we were like a day of rest after Sunday.
I feel like we just need to pause for a minute and let that sink in for everybody. If anybody ever questioned your commitment to the church, I'm sorry, doctor.
Or my wife's.
The birth of my child cannot interfere with Sunday.
Well, especially when it's manageable. So I said, we'd like to have our children on Tuesday. He said, no problem. We'll do it. So we were induced on a Tuesday. She was home by Thursday.
Yeah.
Recovered Friday, Saturday, and we were all in church on Sunday. Baby, mom, and we put our children in nursery from week 1. So
you put like a 5-day-old baby in
a nursery. Yeah.
Wow.
And
you're a man of faith.
Truly.
Great faith.
I don't know that I would necessarily do it again, but we did it with all 5 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just because I wanted to demonstrate that as pastor, I did not look askance at the people that had volunteered to minister to the young families, and I wanted to let them know I was confident in them, and so on and so forth. And we were. We had a experience. I was an associate pastor at the time of my firstborn, but I'm going there. But
outside the context of this current passage,
one of the babies that we had, I think it was, I think it may have been. Susanna, if I remember correctly. There was a stick-thin woman who came out the door after the service. So this is the Sunday after Susanna was born on a Tuesday. This is Sunday. And my wife is in her pre-pregnancy clothes. So she put back on a pre-pregnancy dress. It was a little bit, snug in some areas. Well, this woman came and patted her tummy. And she goes, we have some work to do. Like that. And my wife was like, she was crushed.
Sure.
And I said, honey, that was a really bad thing to say.
Yeah.
That you didn't deserve that you look fantastic. I mean, you're doing great. Don't worry about it. It's, it's 5 days postpartum. You're good. And yet sometimes husbands have that kind of demand on their wives. Well, it's been a week. You've given birth. It's been a week. Why are you still crying? Or why are you still sleepy?
Mm-hmm.
Or why aren't you more energetic? And that, or any measure of that.
Right.
I mean, not that blatant, but any
pressure on the wife to just be quote unquote normal.
Normal again. Yeah. The scriptures put very stringent restrictions on husbands' expectations, even physically on their wives, to resume any kind of pleasuring of one another. That there was a moratorium placed on it, right?
Yeah.
Depending on a male or a female child, the length was variable.
Yeah. But
there was a requirement that you don't approach her, leave her alone. And men have to realize that it isn't just a sexual thing, but there are emotional things. There's healing emotionally. There's healing physically. There's healing spiritually and mentally from all that she's gone through.
Yeah.
That is complicated because the responsibility and demands of a newborn child, or a newborn child on top of a 1.5-year-old child who's mischievous and their sin nature is being discovered and they're reveling in that. So you have that pressure plus the newborn. and all of the stressors and everything that accompany it. So I would say a man needs to really love his wife the way Christ loved the church. Make it about her. Too many men are selfish. It's all about them. It's about what their wives are doing for them. And if they don't feel their wives are doing enough for them, they either get resentful of the wife or jealous of the children and the demands the children are placing upon the wife that disable her from giving him the attention that he requires of her. And tensions can develop because a husband is selfish. So I would say the first thing that a man who is caring for his wife, intentionally be selfless, not selfish. Be selfless. Make it about her. Strive to serve her. Sacrifice for her. One of the first things that pops into your mind when you think about characterize the love of Christ, sacrificial. Yeah. And that's just one of the first things that pops into your head. So that's how a husband needs to approach his wife, to sacrifice for her, right? Another thing I think is to support her, help her take care of the child. Even though I was very hands-on with my children, my wife needed even more than I was able to do. Changing of diapers, feeding, meals, folding laundry, making of beds, changing of sheets, cleaning up toys, or disgorgements that kids throw up all over the place, cleaning that up for her. I used to get up every night with my nursing children when they would begin to cry at the appropriate hour, and I'd fetch them for her, bring them to her so she could remain in the bed, and then she would nurse them. And I was willing to take them back, but Pat would then always take them back and change them and put them back down, burp them and put them back down. There are some occasions where in between sides, I would take the child and burp the child for her, and she would snooze. But I was just trying to do everything I could to help, right? And because she was going through a lot, and men often say, well, I have to get up and go to work in the morning. And that's true. You do. She has to get up and go to work too. I mean, you both have jobs. Hers is inside the house. Yours is outside the house. But support her. Be there for her. Concern yourself with her spiritual life as well. Not as a preacher who is, lecturing her on spiritual truth or quoting verses at her or whatever, but offering to pray for her and with her. Ask her about how she's doing spiritually. Is there a verse that has meant a lot to her? Can I read you the scriptures while you're changing a diaper or something so that you can have time oriented to the word, because she hasn't had time all day.
Right.
And, doing what you can to make sure that she's able to be in church, worshiping with the saints. And if the child is sick, stay home with the child, send her. Don't, because you've been able to get out throughout the week and she hasn't. So let her get out so that she can be edified, not as an excuse to miss the service, but in preference to your wife. And that's a different heart, right? So I would suggest that. Another thing I think would be important would be the self-restraint, the ability to hold your tongue. She may say something that you perceive as critical or cruel, mean-spirited. Don't retort in the same. It's often amazing to me in my own life and in the life of those around me to see people being critical of how another person is being so critical. And I'm going, okay, let's be careful that the things that we're faulting someone for, we're not ourselves doing. And so we can respond to the criticism of a wife by saying, you're not, qualified because you do this, and go back at her. Rather, show self-restraint. Hold your tongue. Be patient with her. Bear her burdens. Galatians 6 talks about bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. And so help her with her burden. Don't dismiss what she has to say. Listen to her. If you think it's ridiculous, realize she does not. So respect her, grant her honor, listen to her. Don't just try to fix her or feel like you're going to set her straight. Be supportive, be sensitive, be restrained, and listen, which is the last piece of advice I'd probably give, at least in this short time, is listen to her. Don't sit there with your phone thumbing through Facebook posts. Sure. Yeah. Don't do that. Listen to her. Eye contact is key. Meet her eye. Listen to her while she's talking to you. And have the ability to express to her what you understand that she has said. So listen.
Yeah.
Be a sounding board, if you will, in terms of your responses to her. And this will be a good conditioning for you that develops muscle memory in how to do these things, because you're going to have to do them the rest of your marriage.
Yeah.
Because the problems of children change, but the problems don't go away. The problems change, and change in nature, change in demand, but they're ultimately intensifying as the child grows. So those are the things. Sacrifice, support, be spiritually concerned and engaged, demonstrate self-restraint, and be a sounding board. Okay?